All right, so today we're working on a section of our carousel book. We're going to be using different primary colors and their tints and shades to give a stained glass background look to this particular image. I'm going to be working with cool colors. So when I say cool colors, I'm referring to blues, purples, and reds. So I'm going to write that down so you can remember those cool colors. When it comes to color theory, you will be understanding different things like cool colors and warm colors and how to make them. So you can see here I have red, I have yellow, I have blue, I have white, and I have black. I also have a tool here. This is called a palette knife. You may or may not have used a palette knife in the past, but what I have seen students do when they are given paintbrushes and not a palette knife is they do all of their color mixing with a paintbrush. Here's the problem with doing that. You're not going to be able to really mix your colors as effectively if you're just using a paintbrush. I prefer to use a palette knife so that when I'm mixing my colors, I'm not getting my paintbrush covered in paint and therefore also making cleanup a lot more difficult, and your color application is not going to be as effective. I have a wide range of different paint brushes up here. All of these brushes have a real nice point to them. I'm going to show you how to paint with a paintbrush so that you're able to achieve the results that you want. So my main color that I wanted to work with today is going to be blue. I'm going to be using blue to mix in yellows and reds. Right now, I'm just going to start by making a little bit of a blue-green. So what I'm doing is I'm using my palette knife, and I have just a flat palette here. Some people like palettes with wells. I prefer a flat palette so that I'm able to really mix my colors a little bit easier. If I have a round well, it makes it really hard to use a palette knife. Round wells in a palette are really good for certain things, specifically watercolor painting. So it's important that you know the difference in palettes that are available to you. And if you've ever seen a stained glass window, one of the things that you'll notice about it is that it has a lot of color. Now, one of the things that I'm doing here is I'm mixing up a blue-green color. I'm also mixing up a green color. What I'm going to be doing is adding tints and shades of those colors. I'm going to apply different painting techniques to each of the areas. Guess what happens if I'm using my paint and my paint is, I don't like the style of, the painting that I've done? The good news is that you can always build paint on top of each other. This is acrylic paint. It's permanent paint. You don't want to get it on your clothing, but you definitely want to keep in mind that you can build up layers of paint with acrylics. I'm going to start just by using a flat tip. So that means that when you look at the flat tip, you're seeing more of a rectangular tip at the top. There's also round tips, and these brushes are, the brushes that I like to use so that you're able to achieve more of a fine point. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just kind of give myself a few different sections that have that specific color. And I can always build up. Notice that I'm going to paint with my arm on my table, and that's going to enable the ability for me to control my paintbrush. I want to add a bit of texture to it, so I am using different brush strokes. I'm making little lines in there because that's what I see in stained glass. Stained glass is never just flat glass. It's usually, well, sometimes it is, but it tends to have a texture in it. So that's kind of the effect that I am trying to achieve with my painting style. And I'm going to do that in a few different areas.
It's weird. Yeah, about those key. What you working on?
She's painting. This is a really silly question.